You present the statistics, you build a flawless, logical argument, and yet the person you are talking to just digs their heels in deeper. Covert oppression operates through the invisible architecture of modern inequality, the automatic, everyday assumptions made by otherwise well-meaning people. Our brains manage the overwhelming complexity of the world using heuristics. These are mental shortcuts that quickly sort incoming information into simplistic categories. But these shortcuts are highly flawed, often relying on cultural stereotypes just to process social situations faster. Because these prejudices operate entirely under the radar, throwing facts at them rarely works. A logical argument forces the brain to do hard work, and biology prefers cognitive ease, so the facts are actively repelled. When a privileged person's worldview is directly challenged, they enter a psychological posture known as the spirit of seriousness. In this highly defensive state, the brain scrambles to rationalize away contradictory evidence. The primary goal is to maintain the comfort of a static social hierarchy. This creates epistemic closure. The mind locks its doors. Polite, traditional debate becomes completely useless because the listener has already decided they are correct. You cannot dismantle a deep-seated bias with brute force. To get past the defenses, you have to trick the brain into opening the door itself. For marginalized groups, subversive humor acts as the ultimate cognitive bypass. It is an evolutionary tool designed to slip right past the defensive walls of the privileged. The moment you realize a joke is being told, your brain completely shifts its operating state. It drops rigid defenses and enters play mode. In play mode, your guard comes down. Your brain suddenly wants to be surprised. It can tolerate ambiguity and confusion without triggering a defensive fight or flight response. By replacing the threat of being proven wrong with the promise of entertainment, humor successfully disarms that stubborn spirit of seriousness. Look at the setup of a subversive joke. Comedians like Louis C.K. will intentionally invoke a cultural stereotype. This deliberately activates the audience's implicit biases and sets a false expectation. Then comes the punchline. The comedian introduces a jarring incongruity, a sudden twist proving the expected shortcut was wrong. To get the joke, the listener's brain must collaborate, scrambling to connect the unexpected dots, temporarily abandoning its rigid worldview to figure out the puzzle. The brain is addicted to mirth, the chemical reward we get from resolving a comedic puzzle. We want that hit of dopamine so badly that we voluntarily expose and then laugh at our own prejudiced logic. Subversive comedy functions as a philosophical thought experiment. It highlights the glaring contradictions between society's professed ideals of equality and its prejudiced reality. In the late 1990s, the activist group Guerrilla Girls launched a campaign to expose extreme gender bias in the film industry. Their punchline relied on a stark comparison. They revealed that the notoriously conservative U.S. Senate actually had a higher percentage of women than Hollywood's directing category. The data from the Senate completely undercut the self-congratulatory progressive image that Hollywood broadcasts to the world during award season. By framing this grim statistic as an absurd joke, the activists forced a privileged audience to accept a difficult moral truth about structural inequality, all without triggering their usual defensiveness. The mental leap required to understand a joke like that forces the privileged listener to practice what philosophers call world traveling. They have to temporarily abandon their own perspective to make the joke work. This taps into the concept of double consciousness, articulated by W.E.B. Du Bois. The audience is tricked into inhabiting a marginalized perspective, seeing themselves exactly as the oppressed see them. This playful, temporary shift in perspective chips away at the hubris of the powerful. It cultivates a genuine empathy that no amount of logical debate can achieve. Subversive humor updates society's moral software by tricking us into laughing at the absurdity of our own prejudices.